Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryankaravavahe, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We have seen that the first step to meditation is because of the association of the mind. The way that its nature is designed is through associative thinking. And this is a good thing when it comes to transacting with the world, but it can become an obstruction or the potential kind of an obstruction when you're trying to think about things, and thereby the antidote for this associative thinking becomes japa. Japa is a repetition of a particular mantra that you emotionally connect with. When I say Om Tat Sat, that is, for example, my mantra that I've been chanting for years, and whenever I do so, it brings me the whole vision of Vedanta at once. So this means it's not something that the guru gives you. It's something that you can be given, but you have to ask yourself, do I connect with this? And what do each syllables mean? Om means past, present, and future. When I think of it, I'm at once including all forms that I perceive, that I hear. When I say Tat, at once my understanding is the truth of those forms is concepts. And when I say Sat, instantly the truth of concepts is the very awareness that I am right now. And then again and again, the mind reinforces this whole vision of Vedanta through mere 3 syllables. The whole 3 syllables reveals the whole vision of Vedanta, and it constantly reinforces the whole vision through this mantra. So japa is not just mindless chanting. Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. Every word, what you're doing is you're prostrating. Om Namaha, that means I prostrate. Now someone's going to ask me what's prostrate. I dedicate myself to, I extend my, I reach out to Shiva. Shivaya. Shivaya. There's always this aya at the end. This is dative. That means I prostrate, for Shiva. That means my prostrations, my dedication for Shiva. Now you have to understand what is Shiva. So this means I have to know, Shiva is a destructive aspect of this intelligence. So intelligence has many names, and the destructive aspect of this intelligence we just call Shiva. And therefore, when you say Shiva, then what is it that I'm seeking from this destructive aspect of Shiva? And I'm seeking to help me remove all of my old patterns, my distortions, my old orientations that are keeping me thinking like I'm the one single individual, making me kind of put the world into boxes and how things are supposed to be, how they're not supposed to be, all of these shoulds and shouldn'ts. So the shouldism needs to go away. Therefore, we're asking Shiva, Ishvara, to help me release this. And thus, japa doesn't only become a way to bring your mind back to that central focus, but also to simultaneously rethink about what you have heard. So step 1 was japa. After you've gone through japa 5 or so on minutes, we're not saying how many minutes, whatever is comfortable for you, then you start to bring in, how does Ishvara relate into my life? And yesterday we talked about, very quick revision, we said I first have to know what is Ishvara. It's not some benign entity, some benevolent entity out there. It is just the intelligence which manifests as the laws and the forms which are operating within these laws in the past, present, and future. And they allow you to operate in this world and get whatever it is that you most find enriching. And so right? This way, Ishvara becomes someone that is something or an intelligence that is manifesting as laws and orders and forms. And we said there's a nice example of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 7, I believe, where there was a thread, an invisible thread, and this thread connects different beads. And these beads are both laws and orders and forms. So laws and orders such as, right, physiological law, psychological law, and the forms, which is like your physical brain. So what we can see is the effects of Ishvara. What we can't see is the intelligence, the cause, which is manifesting as these beads, as these forms and laws. And thus Ishvara becomes that intelligence because of which all these forms and laws are, which you need to align to for your own good, because it is Ishvara's design, Ishvara's creation, not yours. And thus the governor of the universe has made it such that there is a certain order, a certain harmony. In the certain tradition, we call it the Tao. The Tao is that harmony by which aligning myself to, it becomes advantageous for my survival. It becomes advantageous for my mental health. Thus, Ishvara becomes something to bring into one's life. How? Not as the invisible thread, because you can't see it, but as the laws, the law of Dharma. That means the law of Dharma is that which upholds your harmony. By aligning to Dharma, which is nothing but Ishvara, you provide yourself the benefit of living in harmony and peace and having a clear, discerning mind. Therefore, when we say, how do you relate with Ishvara? You cannot relate to that string, because it is that which is it is always manifesting. The only way you can relate to Ishvara is in the form of Dharma, in the form of laws and orders. For example, gravity is gravity. If I choose to kind of walk off the building and say, no, don't, you're going to fall off, right? So gravity is going to pull me down. So it is in my interest to recognize that gravity pulls me down. By understanding that, I say I choose, right, to have gravity not pull me down from such a tall building. So in other words, by knowing what the laws are, it becomes an advantage for you. You're using gravity to, help you. But you can also use these laws to launch rockets into space. So this means you have to discover how these laws work, and thus design something that can function amidst those laws. This is why we have psychology and therapy. Psychology and therapy is nothing but working with these laws of psychology to help manage your thoughts, your emotions. And thus the person, right, helps themselves by discovering, how do I think? In what way can I look at my life so that I can have an easier and smoother ride, and I can think deeper? And thus, after japa, by relating to Ishvara in a form of laws and how they're operating in me right now, how I need them every single day. I need to align to these laws every single day. And when I come out of alignment, who gets hurt? I get hurt. It's not like the laws are punishing you. They're just operating. The gravity is just being gravity. Gravity doesn't mean to pull you down from a tall building. It needs to do that for everyone. So I need to respect gravity for what it does. I need to respect Dharma for why it's there. I need to honor the presence of psychology and physiology, having a healthy body, so that you can live, right, flexible, have health, and have both physical and mental health. Therefore, there's no choice, because Ishvara is a designer, and thus I have no choice but to align myself to his design, if you want to call it his. Okay? Thus, after we've brought and thought about how all of the results are coming from me, to me from Ishvara, from this design, and all results, all actions are going into this field, which will give me back a result in the future, which is none other than from Ishvara, then you can start to change the nature of your meditation and start to bring up some stuff if it may be buried. Because everyone's carrying bitterness, some kind of bitterness or resentment or hatred or strong, disturbing dislike for something. And that is also why we have your eyes closed, your chance to just look within. Is something bothering me? Is there something going on that, if it were to be released, I would have a better time living? And then you're just checking up inside your mind, any feelings, any storage areas, wherever it's stored, and just let it just bring up. Just say, okay, it's there. Okay, this person treated me not well. I was treated unfairly. Bring the image of that person, if you wish, and you say, Ishvara, help me just to release this. Let me see this in a different way so that I can, let this go. Because as long as something keeps on popping in your mind, it means it is unresolved. You only bring things in your mind that are unresolved. You don't bring, things that are, that you have totally resolved, that you adore, that you love. Only those things that are yet unresolved are the ones that unexpectedly, without any permission, come into your mind. Those things which only come when you call them are the things that you have resolved. Those things which you have not resolved yet, they come whether you like them or not. Therefore, meditation becomes a chance to see what are those things that are popping in my mind without any permission. I didn't even call it, and yet a face of some person has popped up. So this is a chance to, in this moment, say, Ishvara, help me to release this. Let me look at this in whatever way possible so that I can, be at peace with this. Therefore, meditation becomes a chance to heal yourself. Okay. Now the question becomes, what is the difference between meditation and contemplation? And meditation is a mental action, okay? And the subject matter is Ishvara. This we have just talked about now. Now, because it is an action, it has a limited result. It will have some limited result. Because yes, you are relating with Ishvara and you are letting the stuff be released. And because it's an action, it will give you some benefit, but it won't ever give you, limitlessness. So the first thing to understand is you can keep on meditating forever. And you will keep on reaping the results, but it is an action. Okay. Now, and why is the meditation here? What's the purpose of meditation? Clearing up your mind. That's it. We call it in Sanskrit Antahkarana Shuddhi. Okay? Antahkarana means inner instrument, Shuddhi, purification. That's it. You're just cleaning up your mind. That is the purpose of meditation. It is not to have some kind of a, experience. Forget about that. This is stage one. This is what people need, and this is wonderful. When you mature yourself up, it becomes purely to have a healthy, clean, discerning mind. That's the purpose of meditation. Now, when it comes to contemplation, it's slightly different. So meditation in Sanskrit is dhyanam, and contemplation in Sanskrit is nididhyasanam, dhyanam and nididhyasanam. What is contemplation? It is using the means of knowledge to discover something that is already true. So for example, in physics is a means of knowledge to discover the nature of the universe. So you're using that means of knowledge, that system, and you're thinking about what they're saying in order to discover how the world works, how the whole sun works and the biology works. So you're discovering what is already true. That's why it's called pramana pravritti. Pravritti means utilizing the means of knowledge. Why are you utilizing the means of knowledge? Because there is something that you want to know, to discover. And thus, the only way to discover it is how? By using the system intended to reveal, to show what you want to discover. Now, when it comes to action, and because meditation is action, okay? Why? Because you're meditating for 10 minutes. You're not meditating for 20 minutes. If you're meditating for 20 minutes, you're not meditating for 1 hour. So it's always going to be an action, and every action is always going to give you a corresponding result. But what kind of result? Limited, because 5 minutes is 5 minutes. Therefore, it can only give me 5 minutes worth of benefit. 1 hour is 1 hour. Thus, it can only give me 1 hour worth of benefit. So it will give you some benefit, but never a limitless benefit, never an infinite benefit. Therefore, when it comes to action, so meditation is an action. Now, in Sanskrit, action is called Purusha Tantra. Purusha Tantra. Purusha means, Tantra means it is dependent upon the person. Okay, so explain this. Now, when an action is dependent upon a person, is free will involved? Absolutely, because it's your choice. So it is dependent on your free will. So I'll call here Purusha. Purush, is it a sh or sh? Underneath, dot? Purusha Tantra. So in other words, it is dependent on your free will. It's dependent on the person's free will. Okay. So when something is dependent on your free will, what kind of choices do you have? Well, you can either do something, that means you've done it before. You can not do something, or you can do something differently. That means you've not done it before, but you're choosing to do something else. Now, who's choosing to do something, not do something, or do something different? The Purusha. You are. So no matter which one you choose, whether I choose to do something, do, not do, or do differently, each one of them is going to be an action. Action, action, action. So no matter which one you choose, you're going to get what kind of result? Infinite or limited? Limited result. Limited. Therefore, if you choose to meditate, fine. If you choose not to meditate, that's also fine. If you choose to get initiated into some special lineage and meditate super technique, you get a super technique, this is also fine. But all three of them is going to give you a limited result. But what about knowledge? Knowledge is called Vastu Tantram. So now what is Vastu Tantram? Vastu means object in English, and Tantram, okay, just means it is not dependent on you, but when it comes to knowledge, knowing about something, then you have no free will involved. Then you have to understand the nature of the Vastu, of the object. So Vastu means object. Okay, I explain like this. So suppose we have a water bottle. Suppose we have water, right? And water is going to be water. Does the water care if you call it Fanta? Suppose you use your free will and you choose to say this water is Coke. Does that change the nature of the water? You use your free will and you say this is toxin, this is toxic. Does that change the nature of the water? In other words, your free will has no part at all. When it comes to knowing about what is, when it comes to knowing about the nature of water, You have free will, there's no choice of it. The only part that as far as free will is concerned, the only thing you can do is understand the nature of the object. I can call that object whatever I want. I can call Brahman, I can call awareness, what do they call these things? Some super duper, cool, blissful experience that does not change the nature of awareness. I can call awareness, some different world. That does not change the nature of awareness. The only thing that I do is align my understanding with the nature of the object. The nature of the object here is Vastu Tantram. So Vastu means your knowledge is aligned to the nature of the object. Your knowledge, your understanding is matching the essence of the object, in this case, the water. However, when you get to discover the nature of the water, because water is still one of the many objects in this world, Vijati Abheda, remember? Right? One of those three categories doesn't matter. Then how much will you know? Very little, right? If I know about the fact that you are, for example, 35 years old, that's just one fact out of billions of facts in this world. Therefore, even if I've aligned my knowledge to the nature of an object, my knowledge still remains limited. But the only knowledge which I can use, which I can align myself to, which will give me total knowledge of everything at once is I am. In other words, Ishvara and awareness. The nature of Ishvara and awareness. I am, I am, I am. Why? Because it is the content, the substance of all things. Just like when the father Uddalaka told Shvetaketu, do you know that knowledge, knowing which, once known, everything at once becomes known? What knowledge? The knowledge of Ishvara and Brahman. Okay? Therefore, in summary, when it comes to action, no matter done by who, no matter what technique you're given, by any guru, at any time, it will always fit under Purusha Tantra. In other words, you can do it, the guru what has told you, you cannot do it, or you can modify his or her technique. Either way, you're going to get limited results. And a limited result is something that is always going to be limited. But what we're seeking is limitlessness, infinity. And the only way to gain, quote, gain infinity is not by doing, but by discovering that which is already infinite right now. Therefore, I simply align my knowledge with what is. Therefore, knowledge becomes Vastu Tantram. Okay? Now, as far as free will is concerned, to discover something, yes, of course, you used your free will to come into this class. You're using your free will to listen. But again, you're not choosing for knowledge to take place. You have to listen and listen and listen, and slowly, slowly, the mind starts to make connections, and it's all just happening in the background, and slowly, slowly, you start to understand more and more and more. Okay? But you're not saying, I choose to understand this. I'm going to understand this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, boom, understood. Free will, there's no choice of free will when it comes to understanding something. Okay? Therefore, in reference to verse 14, when it says, Matparaha, in other words, attaining me, what do you think attaining me? Is that nididhyasanam or is that meditation? Is that contemplation or meditation? Attaining me. Contemplation. Good. Because the second one is Mat chittaha, dwelling upon me. Is that contemplation or meditation? Meditation. So the yogi not only dwells upon me, that means thinks about how I relate in his or her life, but also he or she also attains me, understands my nature as I am. Okay? So both. All right. Now the next verse will talk about what is the result of meditation and contemplation. Now, obviously, you could say, well, the result is, more peace and, better mind. But let's see what the verse 15 says. Yunjanevam sadatmanam yogi niyata manasaha shantim nirvana paramam matsam stham adhigacchati.
Always connecting the mind in this manner, the meditator, the one whose mind is mastered, gains the peace which is centered on me, which is in the form of an absorption in me, which is the ultimate liberation.
So, what is the result of meditation and contemplation? Shantim nirvana paramam mat samstam adhigachati. So, in other words, you enjoy a relative sense of tranquility, a calmness, a certain peace, a certain cheerfulness. Whereas non-understanding of yourself as that which is free of mortality, free of death, free of all of these conditions, then what happens is the person has a restless mind. In other words, as long as I believe or I think that I am this small instrument amongst many in this vast universe, what's going to happen? The mind will feel restless. And because it cannot stand smallness, the mind will keep on going into the world and doing, meditating, this technique, that technique, doing. Because every doing removes that sense of limitation from you temporarily. And that feels good to everyone. This is why the whole world is doing. That's what doing does. It's like a band-aid. It removes that sense of I'm small, I'm worthless, I'm a nobody, I can't, I will never be good enough, I don't deserve to be loved. All of these narratives that are implanted since childhood temporarily suppress when I'm in the presence of a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a friend or this or that. And that feels good to everyone. And this is why techniques are so popular nowadays, because they're meant to diminish temporarily the small individual who's always asking, I want more, this is not good enough, I want more of that, I want this to be like that, I want he to talk to me like this, I want them to hug me like that, I want them to say this to me. This insistent little person constantly chatting desires, I want this, I want that, suppressed, and that feels great. And thus the person associates, I need one more technique to suppress this small individual. This is why relationships are so popular. Did you notice that? It's the hottest thing, right? Find love. Yeah, of course. My mom and dad, they've got no problems. You know why? Because they're always together. The moment they're away, it's the world is like this, the world is like that, people are not good, everyone's complaining. The moment they come together, it's all peace. And then I tell them about peace, do you know about meditation? No, who needs meditation? Everything's fine in our life, son. You see? And this is not about my parents, this is how most are. I just happen to know my parents. That's why I'm using this as an example. Okay? Therefore, these things suppress, the sense of small individual. And thus, what is the result of contemplation meditation? Well, by understanding your connection to Ishvara, you see you're not alone. Once upon a time, I thought I was a small individual who needed somebody else for my happiness. Now, I am always connected to this vast intelligence, which is never away from me. How can anyone replace that? Every individual in your life comes and goes. Nobody that you know now has been in your life once upon a time. And everyone you know now won't be in your life in the future. But one being, one entity that has been with you since beginningless time, which is Ishvara. The one that's been your best friend, your caretaker, your true mom, your true parent. And to that one I am connected to always. Thus, the person is filled with cheerfulness. And therefore, the question is now, how do you find relative tranquility? And then we'll talk about absolute. How do you find relative cheerfulness in life? Well, first of all, one needs to restore their trust in Ishvara, because our trust has been compromised many times. For example, once upon a time, you and I were born, and we had no choice but to trust our parents. They were like our God. And slowly we saw that parents are not keeping their word. They're making some innocent mistakes. And so our trust got compromised. My trust with God got compromised, and I lost that trust. And thus the only way I can restore that trust is by understanding there is only one presence, one entity which is infallible, which never makes any mistakes, and that is Ishvara. The one entity which is unbiased is not punishing me, is not rewarding me, is just offering gravity, offering dharma, offering all of these laws, and by my alignment to them, you benefit. By my disalignment to them, I lose out. And that one never fails. When you do something, the results always come back to you. They never make a mistake, a slight turn, and go to somebody else. Imagine that one day you wake up in your house and someone knocks on your door and says, we're arresting you because you've committed a crime. What crime did I commit? Well, you robbed the bank maybe. No, I didn't. Ishvara made a mistake. Imagine that. Somebody else robbed the bank and the results of their actions got onto you. Does that ever happen? What? Now you may say yes, but what you don't see is there is some cause which I don't see, and that cause is connected to this effect. In other words, what I want to say is whatever comes to you in your life is because there was a doer, which is the same doer as now, who did something in the past. In this sense, I can bring my trust in Ishvara. If you're undergoing pain, it's not random. It's not random. It's not coming from some, you're being punished. You just don't know. There was a person, you, the jiva, who did something, who, had a certain life, and this is the kind of life you're enjoying now, or having now. That's just how it is. It's not fair or unfair. That's just how it is. And thus, by understanding, it's not personal. No one's injuring you forever. And that's the good part here. You may suffer, but suffering is not forever. You may have joy, but joy is not forever. That's the advantage of duality. Nothing is forever here. For every up, there is a down. And sometimes the down lasts for many years, but the up also lasts for many years. And I have to understand there is nothing that I can really sort of do about it. That's just the nature of how it is. Sorry to say. But at the same time, you always have a chance to do something. Pray. That is your refuge. When all hope is lost, pray and pray and pray. Ishvara has not abandoned you. Never. Ishvara is always listening, waiting for you to say something. In that Ishvara, I can have trust that no action goes wasted. Not one action that you do, not one prayer that you do goes wasted. It has some beautiful effect that you may not see now. Not one action goes wasted. Everything counts. Everything counts here. Therefore, one can have some trust in this infallible law, that it hasn't let you down, it hasn't abandoned you. It's just returning this right now, whatever you're going through. And it's not random. There was some cause that made this now happen. You may not know it, but there is something that happened. All I can do is pray, may I be released from this pain. May I find a way. May I find my way to the light. Bring me the light. Never stop, because no action goes wasted.
Can you only pray for yourself? Can you only pray for yourself or also for others?
You can also pray for others, assuming you are connected and your intentions are good for them. Yeah, because as long as you have this connection with them, then your prayer, because gurus pray for their students all the time. This is part of the tradition. Like, I pray for you before we start the class. What I say is, may my students be clear and capture what I'm saying. May I also be clear and speak clearly. So therefore it is a two-way thing. Yes, prayers for others also work. But there's a certain point when you can no longer pray for them. For example, one time in Rishikesh, we were praying for, we had a yajna, a fire, a ritual, and we were praying for someone who had cancer here in Germany, and they still died. The reason is because there's a certain, you cannot cross boundaries up to a certain point. When the body gets sick, the cancerous cells are spreading, prayer cannot negate those effects anymore, okay? But it doesn't now mean don't pray at all, okay? So prayer can do only so much, but it cannot sort of just give you, whatever you want. It doesn't work like that, okay? Therefore, Ishvara is always listening, always guiding you. And there's nowhere else to go but into Ishvara. So whoever is going through a rough time or some challenges, it's fine. It's fine. Bring that order of Ishvara. All that is here is God taking care of me. Right now, I may be going through a hard time, but thank God it doesn't last forever. And if you're going through a good time, pray. May this nourish me. May this nourish my being, because that too may go away. This is just the nature of how it is here. So this is again humility. Whether you win a jackpot, it's fine. Whether I lose, I'm still okay. Either way, you're okay. All is well. I have this mantra, all is well. Ultimately, all is well. All is fine. Okay, so sometimes we need a little bit of self-nourishment, because the mind's so used to thinking about what's not working with me, what is wrong with me, why am I suffering, why am I going through this, why am I going through that, why is life treating me like this? And thoughts just keep on building, and the story becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And you totally lose track of what is working, totally lose track of what is right in life. And eventually the person can come to a point of suicide, because the story has become so large that there's very little that one can do to help. Therefore, your mind is a powerful instrument, and it can build the greatest, most inspiring song, but it can also send you in a dark place. Use the instrument wisely. That's why you're given that instrument. No matter what you're going through, Ishvara is still with you. And because Ishvara is still with you, I can pray. And as long as I'm praying, I am indeed making the situation better, and better. That means one holds on to the only best friend that you've ever had, Ishvara. The one that doesn't let you down ever. The one that removes the veil of ignorance from beginningless time, removes that veil of ignorance. The one that provides you that insight that you need to know and free yourself from whatever is heavy on your heart. It relieves you. Pray and pray and pray. Never stop. This is called relating with Ishvara, not just intellectualizing. Ishvara is over there, knowledge power, it's all knowledge power. You're actually relating with Ishvara every day. Therefore, to restore our trust, we have to, right, understand and pray, may whatever happens to me, may I have the strength to know that it is not personal. May I have the strength to know it is not personal. Have to go through it. I have to go through it. May I have the strength to go through it with strength, with composure.
I'm wondering what you would say that is the relationship then between Ishvara and neutrality, because you also say that you could either win the jackpot or lose and it would be the same, but what then is the relationship with all of this with being neutral about things?
So,
Can you hear me? Well, what the relationship is in your opinion about Ishvara and being neutral, so neutrality.
right, okay, good. So if I understood the question, so when I say Ishvara is neutral, what I mean is, like gravity is neutral. It doesn't intend to hurt you or not hurt you. I just have to understand the laws of gravity and align and use them properly. So in that same way, Ishvara being neutral, what that means, it just offers itself as, for example, your psychology. So if I have the right psychology, the right mind, and I manage my mind, then who benefits from that? You benefit from that. Until I take my mind and I start to think right, nothing's going to happen. So this means it's not like Ishvara is, right, making you think good or making you think positive or negative, but you using Ishvara's free will to create thoughts which empower you, to create thoughts which diminish you. So Ishvara is just offering itself as the free will, as that capacity to choose one from the other. But I still have to take the initiative, okay, to say, I choose to bring this kind of thought, this kind of life. I choose to surround myself with these kinds of people. Until I use my own capacity of choice, nothing's going to happen. Ishvara is just going to be waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, eternally waiting, offering itself and saying, I'm here. Collapse a potential, collapse a possibility. I've got millions of doors for you to open. But Ishvara doesn't open a door for you, does it? Until, through your own free will, you walk over to this door and say, I want this door. And then you open a door and you get exactly what you chose. Therefore, you're offered the capacity to choose. And whatever you choose, however you choose to think, that is how your life is going to be. So no one is going to make your life better or worse. You have the ability to make your life better or worse. It's up to you. It was always up to you. This is what we said last time. You're either your own best friend or worst enemy. This is Lord Krishna saying. Okay? So neutral means Ishvara is neither like hurting you nor rewarding you, but based on what you choose, it's going to return a corresponding result. If I choose to say sorry, I'm going to receive a corresponding result. If I choose not to say sorry, I'm going to receive a corresponding result. If I choose to say sorry in a different way, I'm going to receive a corresponding result. Either way, Ishvara is going to give you whatever you choose. Once having gained relative peace, that means developing this connection, this trust to Ishvara, developing trust to the Lord, then the question is, now, not the question, but now you become relatively ready for absolute peace. That means absolute peace, knowing your freedom from this limited individual. And thus, what is absolute peace? In the verse says, Paramam Shantim. Paramam Shanti. In other words, the truth of me, the individual, the limited individual right now, is the same the truth of me, the individual, and the truth of Ishvara is one and the same truth. The truth of me, who is limited knowledge, limited power, a small being, and the truth of Ishvara, which is the total intelligence, total power, that truth is one. So you're understanding where there is a difference and where there is a sameness. Where is there a difference between you, the individual, and Ishvara? I am limited and Ishvara is all knowledge, all power. Where is the sameness between myself, the limited individual, and Ishvara, the limitless being? I am. That is the content. Good. I like when it's loud and clear. Good. Okay. And how is this discovered? How is this connection between you and Ishvara discovered? Both meditation and contemplation. We said that meditation is thinking about how Ishvara relates in my life with closed eyes. Remember, step 1, japa. Step 2, how does Ishvara relate to my life? Step 3, let that pain come through. That's meditation. Contemplation is open eyes. It can be open eyes or closed eyes. So meditation is closed eyes. Meditation is either. It doesn't matter. While you're walking in a park, you can be contemplating. What is contemplation? Seeing what these teachings, right, mean for you. Bringing these teachings into your life. What does it mean to say that my truth is the same as Ishvara's truth? How am I, the limited individual, different from Ishvara? You're thinking about this. Thought processes are going on. This is contemplation. And one reminder, we do not mix, right, bliss, or we don't like, so for example, what is bliss when I say bliss? Is that awareness? Is bliss awareness? I'm glad you shook your head. No, because if bliss was awareness, what would happen? Everything would be bliss all the time. And yet 99% of our life is not in bliss. Okay? And if you were bliss, there was actually a joke, right, where a man was walking and he was a little bit, depressed because his wife was not giving him what he wants. And so he was walking and he found a magic lamp. And he rubbed the magic lamp and a genie came out. And he was so excited. He said, I get a wish. What is it that you want, sir? Well, I want to be happy all the time. And he says, your wish is granted, sir. And the genie goes back. And this guy is now so happy, he starts to dance, he starts to chant, he's like got a huge grin on his face. This guy is in bliss, man. And he's walking in bliss home, going home, and there is a police tape around his house. And he's so happy. What's this? Why is a police tape around my house? And he's so happy, and he's walking into his house, and there's policemen. And his dead wife someone killed his wife. And he's like, what happened here? And he's dancing. Oh, my wife is dead. And he's like, why are you dancing? Why are you so happy, you fool? This is your wife. I don't know. And they arrest him. And he's in his depressed position, so happy. Could you operate like this in real life? Be the biggest weirdo ever. Okay? So no, awareness is not bliss. Awareness is that in whose presence bliss comes. In whose presence emotions come. In whose presence things are revealed, come through. Okay. Now, it says here, for meditation to work, you need a certain lifestyle. And what kind of a lifestyle is this? Verse 16. Nat yashnatastu yogosti. Nachaikantam anashnataha. Nachatis wapnashilasya. Jagrato naivacharjuna. Someone read?
Meditation is not for one who eats too much or for one who does not eat at all, nor indeed Arjuna. It is for one who sleeps too, nor it is indeed Arjuna. It is for one who sleeps too much or who is always awake.
All right, so it's not for one who sleeps too much. Yeah. Yeah, so here it's pretty straightforward. So, see, obviously for anything to work properly, right, you need proper energy, like, putting proper fuel inside your car. So same thing, your instrument is, your body is an instrument, and you need to put right food, and what kind of food, that's up to you. We're not like little kids here going, oh, let's talk about what to put. You know very well. You can assess what kind of foods give you energy. Obviously, if one eats too much, right, they'll be tired and they'll get brain fog. So the question is, what foods bring you brain fog? Those are potential things to look for. And what can you eat and it doesn't give you brain fog? That's a wonderful thing to have. So do you know, right, what foods are? And now it says also, and one important thing to appreciate is prayer before eating. That is your chance, if you eat 3 times a day, to reconnect, to bring Ishvara into your life 3 times a day. This is like a freebie, a total freebie. Okay? Hugely important. And it makes a vast difference, because eating is just something, so we just do it. And you can convert eating into bringing this knowledge deeper and deeper and deeper 3 times a day. Times 365, that's over 900 chances per year. So prayer isn't just, oh, let me pray, or about, I'm shy. You're doing it for yourself. Prayer before eating. And then sleeping too much. Same thing here, right? Having sensitivity. If you wake up too late, then, right, it's up to you. You can wake up whenever you want, but understand there is a cost for sleeping too much. And there is a cost for not sleeping enough. And the cost adds up. If you can't sleep, I am not a specialist in medicine, but there are teas like chamomile, there is valerian, there is meditation before sleeping. There are different things you can have before sleep to help yourself. This is up to you. What it wants to say here is the instrument is important, and you know how important it is when you don't get a single night of sleep. The next day is like just totally broken. So sleep becomes utterly crucial for mental well-being and for physical well-being. The ultimate medicine, end of the day. And this whole thing of waking up for o'clock, the strict regime of waking up 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock. If you want to do this and if it helps you, lovely. I personally wake up whenever I want. It's lovely, right? Wake up sharp. So again, there's no such thing as you should wake up at this time. This doesn't work like that. Every physical body has a different response to food and to sleep. So rather than saying, here's what to eat, here's when to sleep, here's when to wake up, a better approach is to recognize your own rhythms of your own body and follow that. The ultimate indicator. The next verse, it's the same idea. Verse 17. Yuktahara viharasya yuktacheshtasya karmasu yuktaswapna vabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. So being mindful in activities. So what does mindfulness mean for you, by the way? Mindfulness. Because it's a word that's used a lot. What does mindfulness mean?
With attention, that you use your mind wisely. Well,
super. So using your mind wisely with attention. What else does mindfulness mean for you? I guess, yeah, you're noticing what's, you kind of with it. You're with it. You're not, sort of dozing off, someone's talking to you and they're like somewhere else, So you're like with the person.
Being 100% present with what you do and be in harmony with your activity.
Now the question is, how do you be 100% present and how do you be like here with this moment? Let's make it more concrete, because I've heard these phrases, be now, be here, be present. How do we make that concrete?
I think understanding that what you're doing, that you can offer that as a prasada to Ishvara, that you know what I'm doing, I'm fully aware of what I'm doing.
Mindful is always observing what is good for you, what can you do without hurting yourself, hurting others. I think it has to do also with following Dharma, following this, being mindful of what? Of the laws.
Yeah.
Then, yeah,
Right.
of Dharma laws. Then you, if you were there, then you know that you cannot eat too much, sleep too much. Being mindful in our activities.
So you're being alert of how is this influencing me? How is these factors, influencing me right now? And how am I responding to this situation right now? So rather than an impulsive thing, someone says something and I impulsively say something, what we say, we convert mechanical thinking, that means that, that way how you've done it before, into deliberate thinking. So mindfulness is having deliberate thinking and less mechanical thinking. Mechanical thinking means I've done it before for the sake of ease, because it's easy. Mindfulness is when you intercept that easy path, that easy automated machine mode, and you say, does that apply here? More or less, yes, but every situation demands a different kind of response, doesn't it? Therefore, mindfulness, yes, it is using the past template, but it's also slightly making adjustments to suit the new situation. Therefore, the question is, how do you make your responses less mechanical and more deliberate? Well, for example, like a common thing that happens is we, in reference to other people, we put them into other boxes. Okay? This is a common thing. We want to put others into boxes. This is how they are. Ask yourself, what evidence do I have that this is absolutely true? You see how immediately it stops? What real concrete evidence do I have that what I'm saying about him or her is true? You will probably never come up with anything. Or do I have any evidence that this is true? No, I don't. Immediately it intercepts that pattern of wanting to box someone up, walk away, and feel good about it. Another thing that one can say is, what is the cost of thinking like this right now? What is the cost for me of thinking like this? The power of questions. And then dukkha. Dukkha is a relative mastery over sorrow. Okay? So again, this doesn't mean never being sad, because your system is designed to respond to situations. If someone dies, of course, right? Obviously you'll be sad. And now the danger comes is when it builds up. And this thought adds adding more thoughts. And the story, the narrative, starts to become so big that nothing seems like it's working in one's life. This is dangerous. So all depression, more or less, in psychology can be put into understanding that once upon a time there was one single thought or some condition happened to my body or in my life, and I had a certain thought about it. I had a certain interpretation. I looked at it in a certain way. And then I started to add more ways what it means, what it means, what it means, what it means. And every one of those ways was not in your interest, was not healing for you. It was not empowering. It was just, life is treating me unfairly. I'm unfair. This is not right. I'm falling apart. Why me? Everyone else is healthy. Why am I going through this? Others are healthy. Others are smiling, and I'm not. One thought, another thought, another thought, another thought, another thought for years. Doesn't matter what the physical condition is. I have seen a lot in my life to tell you that the physical condition doesn't play such a big role. I even know a man who crashed from an airplane, and he had third-degree burns, and he lost his limbs. I think 1 or 2 legs, and his face was all distorted. And he had a life to live. Can't even walk anymore. And he decided to change his life around. He says, this is how my life is. I can't go back. But I choose to make my life something. And he became a very successful, I believe a coach, right? Empowering kids. And he touches the life of kids. They bring his torso on a table and he starts to speak to children. And they start crying because they're thinking, oh, we can't. Our life is so bad. Nothing's working out. And they see a torso on a table without arms, without legs. And they all start to break down. They thought their life was not working until you see someone without legs or arms. And he's a relatively happy person because he chose to change his attitude. He could have gone into massive depression. Just think about it. But he chose not to. And it's never too late. This is why Ishvara is so beautiful. Even if you thought 20 years or 10 years of bad thoughts, your life starts to change the moment you say yes to today. It starts today. It's in your hands. It always was. Therefore, dukkha, relative mastery over sorrow, is knowing that you're endowed with the ability to change your thoughts. Just one thought. What is working in my life? That is enough to begin a whole trajectory in your life. And that carries over into the next life, by the way. So it's not like you're just doing it in this life. That carries over into this life, into the next life. Okay? Therefore, what is the solution for coming out of this, this heaviness, this heavy heart? We got the japa. Finding some mantra that works for you brings you back always. Om Tat Sat. Hard time. Om Tat Sat. I'm not good enough. Om Tat Sat. It's not working. Om Tat Sat. I need to fix that. Om Tat Sat. Keep on bringing the mind back, 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 back. You can also get specific. We tend to generalize a lot. The moment something's not working, we put our whole life and we say it's not working. So sometimes we need to get very specific. What exactly am I anxious about? What exactly, in my experience, is it that is bringing me this pain? Relative to what exactly? To a person, to a person's nose, to a person's mouth? What is making me, what is shaking me up? Get specific. The more specific, the more you can work with it. The more generalized, now everything's suddenly wrong. It's all just the whole world's falling apart. Get specific. What exactly am I not right now happy about? What exactly is triggering me? The last one is trusteeship. Trusteeship means you are endowed with this body. You were given this body. As long as you're alive, it is not your body. It is Ishvara's body. And you have no right to abuse it because it is not yours. If it was mine, then yes, maybe it's justifiable, but it's not my body. I was given this body by the Creator. And because it's not my body, I have no right to put junk inside it, to put mental, hurtful thoughts inside it. I have no right. Otherwise, in a sense, I am not kind of grateful to my Creator. Hey, thanks, Creator, for the body. Now let me go and mistreat it. It's not fair. You're given a human body. It's better than a worm's body. It's a big thing to receive a human body. And as long as it's breathing, it is not yours. And this brings a lot of humility. The more I understand, I am a trustee. I am entrusted this body to To be entrusted the body means I am given the responsibility to use it wisely until last breath. The moment it becomes my body, for my use, for my desires, then the person starts to mistreat their body. Therefore, trustee. Okay. Prayer. We also have prayer. Using prayer to convert your helplessness into some help. What is prayer? When is prayer used? When nothing's left. It's all just, there's no, like, nothing's like this beyond your control. You still have prayer because that is one action that counts. Vedic culture is a prayerful culture because they understood the power of prayer. It's an action, and every action has a reaction and effect. That's just the law. That's how it works. And finally, absolute mastery over sorrow. What is this? Well, in the Bhagavad Gita 2.11, Krishna says to Arjuna, wise people don't grieve for those who are gone and those who are not gone. What do you mean by this? Does this mean that a wise person is just cold? No, not at all. The wise person understands the only truth here is Atma. I am, I am, I am. That is the only truth here, awareness. Your body, your thoughts, your mind, all of that is coming and going, like anything else in this world. It sounds a little bit like, insensitive, but it's the truth. A wise person can appreciate their body in whatever condition it's going through, knows the body is meant to change. It's meant to go through stuff. The mind's meant to go through stuff. But one thing that doesn't come and go, which is eternal, and it is right here with me, known to me as self-evident I. Arjuna couldn't understand. What do you mean? How can I not grieve for my brothers and sisters in this Kurukshetra field? And Krishna tried to understand, because you're looking at them as bodies who will die, who will go through pain. But the indweller of every one of these bodies is the indweller in you right now, known to you as self-evident I. So whatever comes and goes, it is just a projection, upadi. Upadi means superimposition. That's the truth. Whether you agree with it or not, that is your thing. It's better to agree with it because we've gone through enough logics to see. And therefore, this gives you relative mastery that this person will too come and go. In fact, is coming and going every day. But the only truth right now that is real, that is eternal, is I am. And thus, it also doesn't mean that the person is in a constant happy state, because that is not how reality works. Just simply being with what is. If I cannot release it, I have prayer, but also appreciating what is working in my life. What is working right now? This is the Lord's words. These are not my words, by the way. What is working in my life? One thing. And therefore, through this, the yogi slowly develops a relationship, a deep trust for Ishvara, and reconnects with the best friend, my true parent, the one that is guiding me even right now, my true parent. And next verse, we will discuss how to manage desires and what is a desire and how to manage those desires that pull us away from things that, that we want. Purnamadav, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnam eva avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.